Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very honored and absolutely excited to be in the presence of so many purpose-driven leaders here who have really gathered here today to learn and to share from each other so that collectively we can build a more resilient future. I thank you for giving me this time to share some thoughts about how startups and social enterprises can define their purpose and value to achieve future resilience. To formally introduce myself to the many faces that I see today, I am Rebecca, and over the past few years in Consulus, I have been given the opportunity to get my hands dirty, working very closely with many SMEs, social enterprises, and a few startups in Singapore and overseas, specifically to define and redefine their purpose. So the question today about purpose and defining an organization's purpose is no longer why, but how. So organizations today have really realized the need for purpose to steer and navigate through waves of disruption. Many of the previous speakers before me really mentioned how it's really challenging these days, and they really need to be able to focus on doing good, and that is how we can really achieve an impact. And purpose is also used to continuously renew themselves and their value to society. The advantage of having a clear purpose is proven to be able to align actions towards generating new value and, more importantly, a real and tangible impact. The case for purpose has been won. So how can organizations begin to define the purpose for those of those organizations that haven't yet gone about doing so? They understand the need, but they know to understand how. So let me take a step back first. Startups, social enterprises, what do they have in common? Well, beyond the fact that they both start with the letter S, they exist to challenge the status quo. For startups, they really want to go in to disrupt the market, come in with a new value proposition, and really change the current state of things. For social enterprises, you see a social need, and that's why, again, you reshape your business model, you reimagine your business model, and you see how you can really disrupt the market. But in doing so, they face some similar challenges and constraints. They are still in the very initial phases of discovering their formula for success and working to prove their business value and concept. They do not have established reputations and legacies, and hence face stiffer competition and have to put in more effort to really define their value and position in the market. So they have limited resources and capability, and they really need to make every decision count. So how can they? Let's start with purpose. So an organization's purpose is really a unique reason for existence and the impact it seeks to have on the world. It should not be an aspirational statement, but a goal that challenges the status quo of the world today. It should define what the world will lack if your organization ceased to exist, or what needs would remain unfulfilled if your organization didn't exist. It should define a unique formula for value creation, and it should serve as a decision-making tool that defines what your organization will and will not do. Defining a unique purpose is often challenging because of the tendency to be too general or broad, or to be too all-encompassing, so much so that your purpose could belong to any organization. So for example, purpose defined in this manner doesn't help create new value because it already states what is already being done. It states the process of value production, but it does not drive the creation of new value. Bigger organizations like MNC might be able to continue on with a broadly defined purpose, relying on many other established competitive advantages like their operational skill and strength. But for smaller organizations like social enterprises and startups that do not have such a luxury, we need to be able to define a purpose that shapes new competitive advantages and disrupts the industry that they're in. Let me outline how startups and social enterprises can use purpose as a strategic approach for propelling value creation by sharing about an organization that just so happens to be both. So Beam & Go is a social enterprise and a startup that I had the great opportunity to work with about 2 years ago. The company is a payment and digital marketplace that seeks to solve the problem of remittance misuse and leakages by empowering overseas foreign workers, OFWs for short, Singaporeans, we really like our acronyms, to have control over how their remittances are spent by their families back home. When we at Consulus first met with the two co-founders, one of the first few things we did was to question them on their growth strategy and roadmap. And in questioning them and in having very deep dialogues with them, what we soon came to realize is that they had a very good idea of who they served. And they had a very comprehensive financial model that tracked only metrics like sales, customer acquisition costs, supplier costs, increasing a basket size. And their growth plans reflected the same level of thinking or the same approach. With their initiatives focused on expansion of more sales channels, more merchants, more partnerships. Despite being founded on a social purpose, they were caught up in the loop and a pursuit of building more and more, with a lack of clarity on how they are working towards creating a unique impact on the world. So what we did first was to help Beam and Go define their purpose to thinking about the unique influence they have on their users. We soon discovered that beyond being a transactional platform, they could influence overseas foreign workers to understand the value and impact of financial management and to help them achieve financial inclusion, security, and resilience. So this was a huge shift from transactions to really impact generation. From there, we worked from them to define their theory of change, their unique formula for creating value, which involved the development of empathetic educational tools and processes for the enablement of OFWs. And this is because OFWs is a very specific market, and they have very specific, goals. They're not, like us pursuing careers and stuff like that. They're really, here to work. They're away from their family, and they're really trying to earn money so that the family back home, they might have many cousins and many a big families to support. And this organization, Beam and Go, really wanted to be able to support them as they support their families. So let me summarize the 3 steps which we at Consulus use for defining a unique purpose. So step 1, define your influence, as I mentioned just now. Purpose is derived intrinsically. It cannot be copied. You cannot say, okay, I like your purpose, I'm going to take your purpose and I'm going to try to do something on my own. It really cannot be purpose, and it has to be self-defined. The first step is to take a step back and answer the question, what is your organization's superpower? What does your organization have that you can use to influence outcomes? For example, do you have access to data that others don't? Do you have certain assets or real estate that other people don't? Do you have a specific unique knowledge or information that others don't? The goal of this first step is to really identify unique assets, capabilities, or points of leverage with the potential for impact so that you can build your organization on. For Beam and Go, they realized that influence is really being an educator of financial management and planning for OFW. Step 2 is to define your differentiation. So how are you going to now achieve your purpose differently from others? What makes your approach unique and why this could be valuable to others? The goal of this step is to define clearly how your organization creates added value, value that already isn't in the market, value that is completely new. For Beam and Go, their differentiation came in the form of empathetic sensing tools to collect and use data to understand the state of mind, what OFWs were thinking about, worrying about, and the state of life, what life moments they are at. Are they, perhaps thinking of moving back to the Philippines? That's a huge transaction, a huge life transaction, for example. Being an e-commerce platform, they saw an opportunity to really understand the OFWs and then be able to communicate with them and educate them and build tools specifically for OFWs to become financially resilient. Step 3, define your ability. So only after you have defined your influence and how you can use your influence to shape a difference, then we talk about the ability, the capabilities that you might need to acquire or to build in order to complete your success formula. What unique abilities or capabilities do you need to create this value and drive progress? And who, perhaps, do you need to be able to complete this journey and this mission? through defining their desire to shape an inclusive platform with empathetic tools designed specifically for OFWs and their families, Beam and Go were able to really define the talent and capabilities that they then need to strategically acquire. So they're not just randomly hiring product developers, coders, IT people because we want to build, but they really started to understand, we need solution designers, people who could understand, people who understand the skill of data sensing, microfinance for OFW. It became very specific in terms of the resources they wanted to acquire. Beam and Go's new purpose was redefined to be very, very specific about its cause to serve overseas migrant workers, the impact they hope to achieve in terms of family resilience and security, its method of impact in terms of building this inclusive digital marketplace and financial ecosystem. And what is also really beautiful is that it highlights the underlying need and the value that Beam and Go brings to the world by serving this marginalized group of our society, the migrant workers. Yeah. So only when done this way, with purpose, serving as a strategic and decision-making tool, can purpose enable the strategic allocation of limited resources and lead the way towards creation of new value. So defining a purpose that brings real value is like planning an expedition. Your purpose defines your destination. Your influence defines your vehicle. Are you going by boat? Are you going by plane? How are we going to get there? What do we have to get there? Your differentiation defines the route you choose to take, one that no one has tried and tested perhaps. And finally, your ability defines the crew that you must trust to go on with this journey with you. By defining a clear and unique purpose and aligning your influence, differentiation, and ability to create new value, and by following this formula, you will be able to continuously renew your organization's value and to build sustainable resilience. So thank you very much.